This episode was brought to you by Super Sour Diesels. So you want to trip on DMT, but you're scared of having a bad trip. Well, you might still have a fucking bad trip, but I can give you some tips that will reduce the chances of you having a bad trip. Full disclaimer, I'm not an expert, I'm not a scientist, I don't have a TV show. The only credibility I have is that I've been doing psychedelics for 20 plus years. And when it comes to DMT, I've done it over 200 times. Anyway, the following shit I'm going to tell you is just a bunch of stuff that I learned over the years of doing a lot of DMT. So first off, there's long-term steps you can take to sort of reduce the chances of having a bad trip. First thing I like to do is set a date for when I'm going to do the DMT. I've done DMT impulsively where I just decided that at that moment to do DMT, and I noticed that that's when I tend to have really fucked up, bad, scary trips. Just set a date. It doesn't have to be like a year in advance. Even if it's just a couple days, let yourself know, let your mind, body, and spirit know, like, hey guys, this day, this time, I'm going to get fucked up, so be ready. The next long-term step that you can take is set an intention. You hear that a lot in psychedelics. People tend to say it a lot, and it's kind of losing its meaning. But it doesn't have to be some crazy intention like, I want to communicate to the spirit of my dead dad or anything like that. It could just be as simple as, I want to have a really far out experience, or I want to maybe learn something about myself that I didn't know before. Just have some kind of reason in your head as to why you're going to do the DMT. Another thing you can do is when you set your date and your time, also make sure you have your place picked out, the place where you're going to do the DMT. And now these are the short-term steps that you can take. These are kind of the things that you'd be taking care of right before you did your DMT. The first and most important thing is the dose. You should know what dose you're going to do. You should have a scale to weigh that dose. I have a very decent video about deciding which dose to take and what effects different doses might have. So you can check that out, linked in the descript. The next thing you want to take care of is your environment. And when I say that, I mean the environment of the space that you're going to do the DMT at. First thing you want to consider is the noise. Is it a noisy place? Do you have noisy neighbors? Do you live in a suburban shit hellhole like I do in Brooklyn? Those are things to kind of consider when you're going to do your DMT. Noises will really influence your trip. If the room that you're going to do it in is near your kitchen and your refrigerator is really loud, then maybe take it to a different room. Any little noise can greatly impact your DMT trip, and if it's not a noise that you like, it might set you down a path of having a bad trip. One little tip I will add, if you're going to listen to music, first off, make sure it's music that you like. Make sure it's music that you have positive association to. And one more tip I'll put on the music is make sure you're facing the direction that the music is coming from. So if you have like a stereo system, or if you're listening to something through your TV, make sure you're facing that thing, because if the sound is only coming through one ear, it might have a weird effect on your trip. I've done that before where I was laying on my couch, like this couch, in this direction, and I had some music playing on my TV in this direction, and the whole trip I felt like I was getting pulled in that direction, and it made me feel a little dizzy and like vertigo, like I was falling or something. So just face the direction of your music, just like you would if you were actually listening to it without DMT. Next thing you want to consider about your environment is the light level. And when it comes to that, I would just say whatever light tends to make you feel the most comfortable, that's the light you should do your DMT in. So if you're like more of a night person and you like it being dark and shit, then do the DMT at night. If you like the daylight more and sunlight and bright lights, then you might want to do your DMT in the daytime. Ambient light level of the room you're sitting in will play into your trip. Now, of course, you could wear something like, you could wear one of these guys. It's like a blindfold thingy. It blocks out the light pretty good. Or you can close your eyes. But if you just close your eyes, you're not going to get pure darkness, and that might affect your trip. Another environmental factor is safety, of course. Like, don't fucking trip on DMT in a room with broken glass all over the floor. I don't know why anyone would ever do that, but, just make sure it's a nice, safe place. Don't fucking hang outside of your window and do DMT, even though I've done that and it was pretty fun. But don't do it. Don't put yourself in a situation where you might, without knowing, hurt yourself because you didn't take care of the physical environment. Another environmental thing is privacy. If you have roommates or something, you might want to consider letting them know that you're doing DMT or waiting till they're out of the house to do it. You might do it on your deck or your porch where people can see you, and you might not like that. So just consider your privacy. If you value your privacy when you're not tripping on DMT, then you're probably going to value it when you are tripping. That's the main kind of point in all these little steps, is if you don't like something when you're not tripping on DMT, then try not to have that in your environment when you are, because it's not like being on DMT is magically going to make you like something that you usually don't. And the last thing to consider for the environment is the climate. Right now it's like really cold in New York, and I have to run a heater, but the heater is very loud. So if I was going to do some DMT right now, I'd probably want to turn off the heater. At the same time, I don't want to be cold when I'm tripping, so I'd probably run the heater for a while to warm up the room before I trip. Same thing when it comes to like air conditioning or anything. You definitely don't want to trip while your AC's on, especially if you have like one of those units that are in your window. Those fucking things are really loud, and going back to the noise portion, you don't want really loud, annoying, obnoxious noises when you're tripping. So run your AC for a while before you trip, but right when you're about to trip, turn off the AC. The next group of things to consider is physical factors, things like food, water. I find that when I take DMT on an empty stomach or while I'm fasting, the effects tend to be much more intense. I find the thing that works best for me is to eat a nice little meal like an hour before I take DMT. It might be different for you. You might function better with no food. There's a weird metabolic effect that occurs when you take psychedelics. It revs up your metabolism, and if you don't have anything in your stomach, it could cause an insulin crash. And if that happens, you will feel like severe hunger pains and shit like that, which can lead to a feeling of anxiety in some people. And if you start feeling anxious while you're tripping, more times than not, that's going to spiral into a full-on bad trip. So just consider your nutrition levels. Consider like how well hydrated you are. You want to be hydrated. You don't want to get thirsty while you're tripping, because who knows how your mind is going to interpret thirst when your consciousness is drifting out of your body. And the last thing to consider for your physical body is the clothes that you're wearing. Again, this goes to like what you normally like to do. So like if you normally feel good wearing nice loose clothes, then wear that when you're tripping. Some people like to wear tight clothes, like it makes them feel secure or something. So if you like that, then wear tight clothes when you trip, but just try to wear comfortable clothes. Me personally, I wear a pair of sweatpants, a t-shirt, and some socks. But you just want to be comfortable. You don't want to have things that, like, let's say you have a shirt and the collar's a little too tight for you, but you wear it anyway. Don't wear that shirt when you're tripping, because a tight collar when you're tripping can easily be interpreted like someone's strangling you or something. I had a trip once where I was wearing a shirt with a collar that was a little too tight for me, and the whole trip I kept thinking that someone was trying to very lightly strangle me, which is not fun. I mean, it could be fun if it's, whatever. The next part you want to consider is your mental status. One thing that I notice is true for me, even after tripping on DMT over 200 times, is that I get very excited right before I trip. My heart starts to beat like crazy, my respiratory rate goes up, and I start breathing very shallowly. So one thing I like to do right before I take my pulls is I just kind of like sit there, take a few deep breaths, try my hardest to slow my breathing, slow my heart rate, and then I'll take my pulls. Another added benefit of taking deep breaths right before you take your pulls is it does open up your lungs a little bit, and it allows you to hold more DMT in your lungs and take a bigger pull. Another thing you want to think about is, what is your mindset when you're doing the DMT? I would never recommend doing DMT when you're feeling like severely depressed or anxious or anything like that. I don't mean like if some little thing is bothering you, like someone did something annoying to you and so you shouldn't trip on DMT. I'm talking about like deep stuff that's really, really bothering you. If you struggle with any sort of mental disease, that's fine. I wouldn't necessarily say you should never do DMT, but just make sure you're not having any acute symptoms of your disease or disorder right when you're about to do your DMT, because it's only going to magnify it. It's not going to make it better. And the last thing you want to think about is who's going to be around when you're doing the DMT. Is there going to be people there? Are they your friends? Do you feel comfortable around them? Do you trust them? That's really important shit to consider. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Again, you can do every single one of these things and still have a bad trip, and you can do the opposite of all these things and still have a good one. It's not quite an exact science, but these are just the things that I noticed after doing DMT a lot of times is if I sort of take care of those things, odds are I'll have a really nice, deep, fulfilling, enlightening trip. The next video I'm going to make is what to do if you are having a bad DMT trip. I've had a lot of those as well, so I kind of know how to get through them. I don't think any bad DMT trip has killed me yet, but who knows? I could be dead right now. I noticed I've been getting a lot more subscribers lately. First off, I'm sorry. I don't really upload regular content. I'm going to try to, though. I am going to try to at least upload a video every 2 to 3 weeks, because I feel bad. All you guys are like subscribing, and I don't really do anything for it. So stay tuned for more weirdo psychedelic videos.